Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and this is BCTV's Meet the Candidates 2020, sponsored in part by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. This series affords you an opportunity to hear from folks running for elected office. Today, our guest is Michelle Bos-Lun, a Democratic Party candidate for Windham 4 State Representative. Welcome, Ms. Bos-Lun.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Okay, well, I'm going to dive right in. First question: why are you running for this office?
Well, honestly, when I first started thinking about it, the world didn't feel quite as complicated as it does right now. But that said, it just kind of feels like even more, we need people to step up to the plate who have an interest and, sorry, my dog is barking in the background, who have an interest and an understanding of some of the challenges that are facing Vermonters. So I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I have kids who have gone through public and private schools. My granddaughter is currently in public school. I work for vulnerable populations through the Department of Corrections and Youth Services. I have a lot of experience and a lot of awareness about areas where Vermont is both doing good work and also where change is needed. And it kind of feels like it's my responsibility as a citizen, as a person who cares about making Vermont a better place for everyone, to step forward and do that work.
So what sets you apart from the other candidates seeking the office?
Well, at this particular point, in the primary, we had 5 people running for 2 seats in Windham 4. At this point, there are 2 seats available, and there are 2 of us that are Democratic nominees. So I can't really say in the state what it's like for other people, but at this point, I don't actually have an official opponent. I would say what makes me unique as a candidate is that I do have a really diverse background. I've lived in Vermont for almost 20 years. I've been a teacher. I worked at Youth Services. I've worked with people who have recently been released from prison. I worked at World Learning in intercultural, cross-cultural programs, bringing youth from around the world to do different kinds of experiences here in the US and do leadership programs. So I have a pretty broad background that delves into a lot of areas that are relevant to the life of Vermonters. And actually, I would add to that list housing needs for vulnerable populations and mental health. So I'm pretty uniquely qualified. I'm not an expert in everything, but I have a pretty broad range of experiences that are relevant to making policies that are going to work for the interests of Vermonters.
Okay, well, so let me go on record as congratulating you on your on your victory during the primary.
Well, thank you.
So then what would be your top 2 priorities when you go to Montpelier?
Well, it's a little hard to say. There are so many things that need to happen in Vermont right now. But as I was thinking about what I was bringing to the office and what I wanted to prioritize, I actually had 3 main issues, but we'll just stick with 2 for sake of simplicity. One of my priority areas is looking at the issue of healthcare for all, and particularly under the umbrella of that, what can we do to support people with mental health needs? Now, nationally and in our state, we're supposed to already have mental health parity. Mental health issues are supposed to be covered as healthcare issues are covered. And to a certain degree, that is true. But it's also true that the needs of mental health needs of people who are in crisis in Vermont are not necessarily met with all of the options that would be both of most value to those people in recovering and also cost effective, honestly. So one of my biggest priority areas, and I've served on 2 boards within the state of Vermont, and I've done an awful lot of volunteer work within mental health advocacy organizations. So one of my biggest issues is working on mental health care availability of programs that would meet needs of people in crisis. And particularly an area that I'd like to work on is having more spaces available for alternative residential options other than the state hospital. You hear a lot about, oh, after Irene, the state hospital closed down. What are we going to do for tier 1 beds? Well, that's not the only thing that we need. We need places that people can go when they're in struggling states. That might be peer respite centers. That might be other kinds of alternative spaces that could be helping meet their needs when they're in a struggling space, but not necessarily be locked up in a hospital. And some of our neighboring states have really good models of that. We actually don't have really good models of that. We have a couple, but we need more. So providing alternative mental health options, that would be one of my largest priority areas. The other one I would say would fall under the umbrella of sustainability. There are a few different things that could fall under that. So certainly looking at getting our environment, keeping our environment strong, getting our small towns to have the businesses thriving and resuming their former ability to function pre-COVID would be part of that. But I guess another thing that I would like to add into a priority area under the sustainability would be, what can we do for our kids in schools? We've got thousands and thousands of children that are going back to school or not going back to school, that are in school part-time, that are on the computer part-time. I mean, I'm a teacher, I'm a grandmother, I've been an educator for my entire adult life. And I have educated kids online, and I have educated kids in a classroom. I've never educated kids in an elementary school setting, that the situation that we have right now. And it's very, very challenging, and we're going to need to make some adjustments. So in terms of having something that's going to work all the way through the winter, all the way into next year, that's going to both keep kids educated and also keep kids and teachers and support staff safe, we need to work on that. And we need to work on that really quickly, because we're already doing it. And what we're doing right now may not be working in January. So if I take office in January, that's going to be one of the issues at the top of my list. What can we do to keep things sustainable so that children, families, and those who support them are all going to have their needs met in terms of both education and health?
All right. Well, so what would you do to ensure that more Vermont families with young children can find and afford childcare?
Well, that is a tricky question. Although I would say that this week, as opposed to last week, I'm feeling a little more hopeful. It's my understanding just in the last couple of days, the governor actually announced that a large amount of federal dollars were going into establishing childcare hubs in a number of regions in our state, including one of them here in Windham County, which was supposed to provide access for a number of kids to be provided childcare during, I think in particular, on their remote schooling days. So I have friends who have kids in school that they're there 2 days, but there's a cleaning day that's a remote day, and then there are 2 alternate days. So really only 2 out of 5 days a lot of kids are in school. Well, I think that this idea of providing supportive hubs where if you don't know where you're going to send your child, you don't have a neighbor, you don't have a family member, your own schedule doesn't work as a parent, you can have a hub that you can tap into that will be aware of safety guidelines and also have some space available and funding available. That sounds great. Now, the logistics of that is almost incomprehensible, how they're making that work, but I'm not taking office until January. There's going to be a test run going on between now and December. And hopefully they'll be figuring some things out and continuing to use those federal dollars that come in for that need, because it's a critical need. It's critical for kids and it's critical for parents. And it's critical for small businesses that rely on those parents.
All right, so let me go to the other end of the age spectrum there.
Yeah.
Recent reports indicate that seniors in Vermont face one of the highest rates of financial insecurity in the nation. How do you think we can make life for seniors more affordable?
Well, I have 2 ideas about that. One of them is continuing to support weatherization efforts in our state. We actually have done a pretty good job, like here in Southern Vermont, SEVCA offers low cost, or even some cases even no cost, weatherization opportunities for low-income Vermonters, and that would include elders. And if they're able to get their homes weatherized, that's going to make both a smaller amount of fossil fuels that are released into the world, but it's also going to save on their energy bills. And that's going to be something that's going to help the budgets of elder Vermonters. The second thing I would say, and this would be, you know, it might require a bit of a cultural shift, but I personally like the idea of considering people doing intergenerational house shares. And I have friends, I mean, I'm in my early 50s, I have friends in their 60s and 70s who are considering this You know, I have a house and I used to have children living in it and grandchildren and people coming in and out. And as people get older, sometimes we have a spare room. We have 2 rooms. We don't necessarily want to leave the house that we grew up in or that we built or that all of those memories are in for our families. But would it make sense to let a younger person live in the house with you and share some of the household responsibilities? You know, could that make it both more affordable and also even more sustainable? Somebody who can help shovel the driveway in exchange for part rent subsidy or something like that. I personally think that could be a really interesting way to meet the needs of high costs for housing for younger people and the need for older people to have things be more affordable. So again, I'm not saying every Vermonter that that's going to work for them, but could it work for some? I really believe it could. And I think some organizational structures on the state level and on the local level could help to support that. And I actually could totally envision that for myself. And I think that there are other people that that could really work well for.
Interesting idea. All right. So we are going to emerge from COVID. I firmly believe that. I don't know when, but what would be your vision for Vermont in a post-COVID world?
Well, my vision in a post-COVID world as what I would really love to see, my dream vision, if I can just say, here, this is what I will hope for Vermont. What I would love to see is a Vermont that works for everybody. And what that includes is the people who live here already, who have been here for generations. In my granddaughter's case, on her dad's side, she's been here for over 7 generations. In my family, I moved to Vermont 20 years ago, so I'm a first-generation Vermonter. But both of us are deeply invested in making life in our state a good place to be. And that's also true for the people from Syria who arrived in Rutland a few years ago, and asylum seekers who have moved into the southern part of our state through the assistance of groups like the Community Asylum Seekers Project. We have a really diverse range of people that live in our state. And I'm not saying that in every way we all are equally diverse. I think everyone knows that our state is disproportionately white, and there are some ways that we are not diverse. But we do have a wide range of people with a wide range of backgrounds. And I hope that that is actually going to be increasing over time. And I hope that over time, we're able to look at the issues that have been divisive in our communities. There are areas that need work, that need change. You know, there are Vermonters who live here who have not had their needs met in terms of justice. You know, I work for the Department of Corrections in a program that supports people who have recently come out of prison. Well, our prison system has some big problems. We have a disproportionate number of people of color in prison, like 10 times more than the number in the population. We have more people of color that are pulled over by the police. That's not right. Those are examples of systemic racism, and we need to work on that in every level. So what do I envision? I envision a world that over time, over months, over years, we're facing these difficult issues and working at making a Vermont that is supportive and just and welcomes everyone and listens to all the voices and has the hard conversations and tries to make a community and a state that can work for everyone. Not just for the Vermonters that have been here forever, not just for the Vermonters that came 5 years ago, but for all of them. And I hope that on the federal level, our immigration policies have been reformed so that we are able to continue to welcome people who are struggling in other places in the world, because I actually believe that's to our benefit. To offer a home to people from Central America or Afghanistan or Syria who are looking for homes, we need that. Our state has a shrinking population. We should be looking for ways that we can bring different people to our state, because that's going to be to our advantage. And my vision is that, you know, it might sound a little kumbaya, but my vision is that we can all live together in harmony in a respectful way that can be a model for the rest of the country and maybe the rest of the world. I think we have a lot of good people here who want the right things, and we need to work together to make this place the best that it can be for all of us who have our home here.
Well stated. My last question for me is, what do you want voters to know about you?
Well, I don't know. I guess I would say I want voters to know that I'm a person who cares deeply about people. Okay, the motto of my campaign is for people and planet. And all my career, I'm 53 years old. I've been teaching since I was a teenager living in Taiwan. So, I mean, I've been teaching for over 30 years. All of my career, I've been working with people. And most of my career, I've been working with young people. So one of the things that's the most important to me is how to find ways to make Vermont work, not only for the people that live here in terms of businesses, in terms of infrastructure, you know, all of those structural things, we need those to be working. We need to have good schools. We need to have good roads, but we really need to find ways that we can support the people who live here. We need people to be able to afford to pay their taxes so that they can stay in their homes and not move to another state. We need to have schools that are close enough to the students where they live that they can go and not have to ride for a really, really long time as little children in order to go to kindergarten because of forced consolidation. You know, we need to have a state that's going to work for the needs of young people, because if it doesn't work for young people, they're going to leave. And we don't want to be a state that's only the people that are my age and older. No offense to those of us who are in the, you know, the second half of our life cycle, but we need to make it work for the young people. And so what they need to know about me is I want to make a Vermont that's going to work for the young people, that's going to work for the families, and also be paying attention to the needs of the elders. Because if we're looking at the needs of our people, we're also going to be looking at the needs of our environment and our small businesses and all those other things. So I think those things are important. Those are my priorities. You know, I plan to be in Vermont the rest of my life. And I want it to be a good place to be, that I can be a place that I can be proud of contributing the example of what just governance and, you know, just coexistence can look like.
Michelle Bos-Lun, a Democratic Party candidate for Windham 4 State Representative. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
You can learn more by visiting her campaign website, michelle4windham.com. That's Michelle, the number 4, windham.com. The general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Remember, you could vote early in person. You could vote absentee by mail. You could vote absentee hand delivered. Whichever way, just vote. Thanks for watching Meet the Candidates 2020, sponsored in part by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. I'm Marty Cohn. Stay healthy.